Chris, and I want to show you my new computer, or, well, my old computer. See, this is the old case, and this is from 15 years ago. It's actually my first computer. I bought it in 1998. I was a kid, right? So, this is the first board. This has got a Cyrix M2 processor, 200 megahertz, very old, right? You even have ISA slots on this thing. That's how old this is. And of course, parallel, serial, VGA. Well, anyways, I wanted to build a new computer, but I didn't want to spend too much money. So I bought a board that was compatible with the case. This is a micro ATX form factor, which means that any motherboard that is micro ATX is going to actually fit inside there. It should fit just fine. I did run into a couple problems, but I want to show you that you can test your boards and make sure everything works outside of the case just by making sure it's not touching anything metal and grounded. And basically, if you take a look at your manual, you can find something here. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see it clearly, but system panel header, you can see power LED plus, minus, power button, and ground. Well, what that's talking about is right here, these prongs. This is what actually starts the computer. You just basically create a circuit and it will start the computer, and I'll go ahead and demonstrate. See, what you need to do is touch power, button, and ground, and voila, the computer will start. You don't need to do anything else past that point because basically it will just take care of itself. While that's doing that, I wanted to explain a couple of problems that I had. One of the main problems was when I was building this older board. You can actually see if I hold this up here. It's a little wider, and it doesn't fit right. So what the original manufacturer did is they had these seating points, and what they did is allow it to sit into the case just fine. Well, we had to use a Dremel to remove them, and once we did that, we were able to stop the board from grounding out. So, anyways, now that we have that all set up and you can see that this is operational, we'll go ahead and turn it off. And we'll go ahead and disconnect everything. And while we go ahead and do that, I want to explain that there was another issue, and it comes down to this. This little chip here is our power button. You just push that, it goes in the front of this. And this is what creates a circuit here. And basically I had to look at the back here and follow the circuits, and you can see positive and negative for the LED. And we tied it off and labeled the wires. This was originally one piece. We just cut it with the Dremel into 3 separate pieces, and the way it used to sit on this was right here. It was one long plastic piece. But on the new board, you can see here, it's 9 little prongs. We had to make the old thing work. There's only 6 wires, so we had to figure out which ones went where. Once again, referred back to the manual like I showed you earlier, and just followed the circuits, and it does explain on this everything that you need to know. So I'm going to go ahead and work on putting this together, and we'll go ahead and boot it up and see how everything runs. And some of the things also that I had to worry about was some of the cables and some of the things didn't fit as nicely as you'd like them to. For example, this is rather short, so it doesn't reach as far as I'd like, but that's fine. But anyways, now we've already booted the motherboard outside of the case, so let's go ahead and get it inside. Like I said, when you purchase a computer, it comes in a form factor, a certain size. So basically, as long as you buy the motherboard that is the right size, it should fit just right. And all the screw holes should line up just right. The only thing you have to worry about is up here, where the devices actually come through, your inputs and outputs. Once those are lined up and you have all your screws, you can go ahead and start installing the motherboard. Now, it's actually pretty nice to just go ahead and use a magnetic screwdriver. It'll make sure you don't lose these things. They tend to get lost inside of cases. So, go ahead and put that in. It doesn't have to be super tight. We're not trying to make sure that nobody will ever get the job again. We just need to make sure it'll stay in the case. Now with this setup, I chose an AMD FX CPU. It's a 6-core, 3.3 GHz CPU, and it has overclocking capability, which is not a bad thing if you're feeling adventurous and would like to try to run your system at a little bit higher performance. But you do run a mild risk of not only increasing the heat that comes out, but the potential for damage to occur, which obviously is a bad thing. But if you know what you're doing and you don't mind taking the risk, the rewards can be pretty nice. For this application, we're not going to go ahead and do that, just because 6 cores and 3.3 gigahertz is pretty quick as it is, so no need to worry about that. Okay. So we have our screws in here. Now we're just going to get our power supply bolted in. Maybe. There we go. Now, the RAM that was chosen is interesting because basically this board can run 2 different speeds of RAM. It can run DDR2 1066, or you can run DDR3 at 1600. It just depends on which channel that you choose. It has 4 slots there, and they're color coded. The blue ones are for the DDR3. So, very inexpensive. You can go online to Newegg or other places like that, and you can find RAM for very low cost. And I was able to get 2 sticks of the DDR3 1600, very cheap, and I have a total of 8 gigs of RAM, which is more than enough for this application here. Now, we're going to run into a couple issues. One mainly is because the devices are so old, these optical drives are using IDE cables, and so are the hard drives. But if you look at the board, there's only 1 slot for IDE, and everything else is SATA. Now, I didn't intend on continuing to use these optical drives, and since I actually have a functioning operating system, I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm just going to go ahead and not use those and leave them in for now, just so that we have them in there and it doesn't look, well, kind of ghetto. Now this, just install very easy. Now before I go ahead and put that in, I should probably get the faceplate because I'm going to have to feed the power button cables through the front. And since the limitation on how long the length of the cord is, I'll have to feed it through this little hard drive mount on this old case. Now, just for those people who are a little bit anxious about trying to work on a computer at home, you don't need the bracelet so long as you touch the case. It will make sure that you're grounded by touching the case. That way no static will damage your parts while you're working on this. Okay, so I believe we'll get the length we need by going through the side here. And we're going to fold up this port up here is not going to be functional. It's an old USB port. We don't need it, and so we're just going to try and tuck the cabling up here. Once I get it lined up, it's mounted, as you can see, and we just use the screw to secure it. And we're good to go. Now, we have a secondary hard drive. Now, there's no worry. If I do need to use an optical drive at a later point, I can just stretch this up here and plug it in. That's fine. But since we have two 500 gig IDE drives, what we're going to do is we're just going to plug this in. So making sure that we're not... There we go. Now this isn't secure to the case. For whatever reason, it didn't line up. So, that's fine. With the front faceplate, it should line up just fine and stay inside because as you can see, if I lift the front, the hard drive is where the old 3.5 floppy was. Who the hell uses floppies anymore? That's definitely out of date. Just like these ISA slots. Nobody uses those. Alright, so we have most of our cabling in. Just need to attach it to the motherboard. And since this is a very simple setup, nothing very complex, and no GPU, we basically just have an integrated board to make things very simple for this setup. And so, nothing but a few wires. Make sure everything's plugged in. Okay. Alright, of course, now we're getting to the end and things are getting a little tight, so bear with me. I'll be done with this. There we go. Looks like we're all logged in there. Okay, just making sure it's secure. Not trying to be too aggressive with it, but we definitely need to make sure that it's all the way plugged in. That is our primary hard drive. Now with the old IDE cabling, you can only have 2 devices per cable, which is why we can't have anything like more optical drives with the 1 slot here. Which is unfortunate, but it's okay. We'll live. The main reason for that is because it works in a master and slave system. One device is the master and the other is a slave, so one takes precedence over the other. Okay. Now everything should be plugged in. We have our fan plugged in. There's nothing complicated going on here. We're not even going to worry about the major case here, but the big thing we have to worry about now is taking the power button cable and running it here. Now I've already done this, so I don't need to... Okay, we're going to have an issue. We just need to pull this out real quick and readjust it. It's not that big of a deal. We just threaded it through the wrong hole and don't have enough. Or maybe I just didn't have it pulled through enough. Now this is going to be a little bit of a pain, but I showed you the prongs earlier. Basically, you just put them where I've already found out where they need to go, so you don't need to concern yourself with that. But like I said, you need to read the manual when you do this, because you can go ahead and use the old power button to whatever old computer you have. You just need to make sure that you match up the power button LED, positive, negative, and the ground, and it will allow the old power button to work. This is, like I said, a 9-prong, and the old computer only had, what is it, 5, 6, 7, 8, 5, 7 prongs, but it only had 6 wires. So kind of an interesting deal there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pick this up and move it, and we'll test it out. Okay, well, the monitor's already on, so we don't have to worry about that, fortunately. And we'll just clear this out. I'll bundle the cables later. All you really need to do is make sure you have a rubber band, and you can just fold them on themselves, and you'll be fine. Make sure nothing interferes with the fan. And now that we have everything secure and plugged in, oh, one thing missing. Make sure we have video. Alright. There we go. Okay, the moment of truth. Now we have everything inside the computer. Push the button. We ran into a problem. Well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and stop here because it's probably something simple. But basically, I just wanted to iterate that you can reuse old cases and old things. Some of them will have to be replaced. It's obvious that a lot of things had to be replaced on this, pretty much everything. Except for the old hard drives had to be replaced, and even those were changed out at one point. So, anyways, my name's Chris, and hopefully you learned something from this, and thank you for watching.